अथ चक्षुरादिन्द्रियपरीक्षा नाम तृतीयं प्रकरणम्
अथ āyatana-parīkṣā nāma tṛtīyaṁ prakaraṇam. Chapter 3, titled Exploration of Sense Spheres.
दर्शनं श्रवणं घ्राणं रसनं स्पर्शनं मनः इन्द्रियाणि षडेतेषां द्रष्टव्यादीनि गोचरः
darśanaṁ śravaṇaṁ ghrāṇaṁ rasanaṁ sparśanaṁ manaḥ indriyāṇi eteṣāṁ draṣṭavyādīni gocaraḥ. 6 sense powers are looking, listening, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking. In their possession, there are objects to be seen, etc. There is a range of action.
स्वमात्मानं दर्शनं हि तत्तमेव न पश्यति यदात्मानं कथं द्रक्ष्यति तत्परान्
Svam darśanam hi tattameva na paśyati yad-ātmānaṃ kathaṃ drakṣyati parān. For that act of looking does not see its very own essential self. How will what is blind to itself see others?
न paryāpto gni-dṛṣṭānto darśanasya prasiddhaye sa-darśanaḥ sa pratyukto gamyamāna-gatāgataiḥ
Paryāpto gni-dṛṣṭānto darśanasya prasiddhaye sa-darśanaḥ sa pratyukto gamyamāna-gatāgataiḥ. Fire, as an end in sight, is not adequate for establishment of an act of looking. Such an object, conjoined to an act of looking, is refuted with reference to the now being visited, the already visited, and the not yet visited.
नापश्यमानं भवति यदा किञ्चन दर्शनं पश्यतीत्येवं कथमेतत् युज्यते
Napaśyamanam bhavati yada kimchana darshanam paśyati tyevam kathaṃ yujyate. When an act of looking in no way becomes the beyond being beheld, how, pray, is this workable, that an act of looking sees?
पश्यति दर्शनं नैव पश्यत्यदर्शनं व्याख्यातो दर्शनेनैव द्रष्टा चाप्युपगम्यताम्
Paśyati darśanam naiva paśyatya darśanam vyākyato darśanenaiva draṣṭavyādīni. Looking does not see at all. Looking does not see at all. Not looking does not see at all. And yet the looker should rest assured that by the means of just looking, he is communicated in full.
तिरस्कृत्य द्रष्टनास्त्य तिरस्कृत्य च दर्शनं द्रष्टव्यं दर्शनं चैव द्रष्टर्यसति ते कुतः
drashtanasya tiraskritya cha darshanam drashtavyam darshanam chaiva drashtaryasati te kudaha. A seer, separately or inseparably from seeing, does not exist. As for what is to be seen and seeing, where there is no seer, how will those two be?
द्रष्टव्यदर्शनाभावात् विज्ञानादिचतुष्टयम् नास्तीत्युपादानादीनि भविष्यन्ति पुनः कथम्
Drashtavyādarśanābhāvad vijñānādi-chatuṣṭayam nastityupadānādīni bhavishyanti punah kathaṃ. In the absence of seeing and objects to be seen, the four that begin with divided consciousness do not exist. Which being so, how will clinging and the rest come again into being?
व्याख्यातं श्रवणं घ्राणं रसनं स्पर्शनं मनः दर्शनेनैव जानीयात् श्रोत्री श्रोतव्यकादि च
Vyākyatam śravaṇaṁ ghrāṇaṁ rasanaṁ sparśanaṁ manaḥ darśanenaiva janiyāch śravaṇaṁ. One should understand that listening, smelling, tasting, touching and thinking are communicated in full by just looking, as also are the listener, the to be listened to, and so on. So this chapter, as we've been exploring it, is about an act of looking, darśanaṁ, including the possibility of seeing, darśanaṁ. So it's looking, which includes the potential, includes the possibility of seeing, but without trying to see. So it's the act of looking as opposed to trying to see. In other words, this chapter is about non-doing, or not end-gaining in Alexander terms. What I've tried to clarify going through verse by verse is the Alexander principle that not end-gaining does not necessarily preclude gaining the end. Rather, it means taking away the anxiety that is associated with the desire to gain an end and giving one's full attention to a process. So the act of looking, to give oneself over to an act of looking, is not to be concerned with the end of seeing. But ironically, when one can do that, then ironically, that's when things tend to become clear. So I've referred to the Alexander experience of being told by the teacher, no, not that, no, your hands are grasping, not that, not that, your hands are doing, your hands are grasping, not that. And you get to a point where you say, and the teacher says, yes, that's it. Because at that moment you've recognised the hopelessness of your end gaining, if you're going directly for the target, of striving. And at that moment, without intending to, something has let go, without you intending it. In fact, more the opposite. You weren't expecting anything, and then the teacher says, yeah, that's right. So that seeing, that is a moment of insight, but it's not what you expected. And in connection with the last verse, I referred to a recent email exchange with Jundor Cohen, in which I compared myself to the exploratory gold miner, and which is how I feel I do my best work. What I wanted to say about that is that in saying that I saw myself more like a gold miner, and the likes of Jundor Cohen are more like a jeweler who puts the stuff in the shop window and sometimes collects the money. That's not at all a criticism of the jeweler's job. The jeweler also has got an important job in making the product user friendly. So what I was using that metaphor was to say to Jundor Cohen, you go ahead and gain the end of writing a book. It's not that I'm against the end of, making the product user friendly, and if fame and profit comes one's way as an indirect consequence of making that effort, doing the hard work of a jeweler, then so be it. What Master Dogen was so critical of was the attitude that you wanted to sort of take the money, regardless, that was your motivation. So a true jeweler does his job well. He's not doing it for the money, he's doing it for the love of being a jeweler and for serving the customer. So that's like the ultimate end of a translation, is that somebody publishes and sells a product. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with getting fame and money from the interface with the consumer, as long as your motivation is to do an honest day's work, kind of thing. When I commented, I made that reference in connection with verse 8. Then I realised as I was editing the video that I hadn't actually finished off my story. I'm afraid that's a terrible habit. I start digressing from one thing to another and then don't finish off the story don't finish off making the point that I was originally intending to make. Similarly, a bit I edited out of chapter 8, verse 8, because I made a mess of it, was a reference to the Heart Sutra in Chinese. What I wanted to clarify is that darśanaṁ in Sanskrit includes the English looking and seeing, among other things. But in Chinese, you've got, as in English, you've got a distinction between kan, which means looking, and ken, which means seeing. So, for example, there's a chapter of Shobogenzo meaning Kenbutsu, which means seeing Buddha, or meeting Buddha, or realizing Buddha. So really, that's our aim. That's enlightenment. When you see Buddha, when you realize Buddha, when you really understand what Buddha is, what awakening is, what enlightenment is, when you experience it for yourself. So those are all very tempting descriptions of something. And with the end gain in mind, of course, you want to get your dirty paws on the meaning of Kenbutsu. But then there's another chapter, kan-on, which literally means kan means looking at, and on means sounds. So this is, kanon is short for kanzeon, which means looking at the sounds of the world. And this is the Chinese rendering of the bodhisattva, called in Sanskrit Avalokiteshvara. And Ishvara means capable of, or having mastery of. So it means a master, a lord, a god, of avalokita. Avalokita is the past participle of avalok, and avalok, easy to remember if you're a British English person who says have a look. Avalok means have a look. It means to look at. So avalokita means looked at. So Ishvara, avalokita Ishvara, which with Sandhi is avalokiteshvara, is the name of the bodhisattva who is free in looking. And that is the name of the... So that bodhisattva in legend, he beholds, the sounds on of the world. Se, kanzeon, beholder of the sounds of the world. So when we, in our suffering, cry out for help, the bodhisattva kanzeon, we believe that he hears our cries for help and intervenes to help us. At least we believe that if we're a bit of a soft-headed Mahayana Buddhist. But originally, in Sanskrit, avalokita, looked at, and hence looking at. So past participle is sometimes can be translated into English as a present participle. So looking at, Ishvara, capable of looking at, capable of looking, a master of looking, a god who is free to look anywhere. It has that kind of meaning. So it goes very well with what I've been trying to clarify, the difference between looking and seeing. Seeing is a more kind of an end-gaining state where you're more tied to gaining an end, whereas looking is more open, free. So the Heart Sutra, which really represents MMK in summarized form, begins Kanji Zaibo Satsugyo Hanya Hara Mitaji. So Kanji Zaibo Satsu is another name for Avalokitesvara. So kan again means looking, jizai means free. So kanjizai means free of looking. It's actually a literal translation of avalokitesvara, free in looking. So I take that in a small way as confirmation of what I've been exploring in this chapter, that darśanaḥ is really best understood as an act of looking. So kanji zaibo satsu gyo jin. Gyo is practiced, jin, the profound, hanya hara mita ji. Ji means time, when. Hanya is prajna, wisdom, understanding. Paramita is a transcendent virtue. So when the bodhisattva who is free in looking practiced the profound transcendent virtue of wisdom, kanji zaibo satsugyo jin hanya hara mita ji shoken. So that's the word ken, to see. So shoken is what was seen. So it's interesting again, isn't it? By being free in looking, he did see something. If we follow the Chinese characters, ken means to see or to realise. So shoken, what was realised? What was realised? Go on kaiku. Go on is the 5 skandhas, the 5 constituents of psychophysical unity. If you're interested in that, you're in luck, because the next chapter is titled āyatana-parīkṣā, exploration of the skandhas. So go on, the 5 skandhas, kai, totally, ku, empty. So the 5 skandhas, that's what the bodhisattva, when he was free in looking, and when he practiced the profound paramita, of understanding, what he realised was that the 5 constituents of psychophysicality are totally empty of their own self-existence. That's what MMK is clarifying, and that's what the Heart Sutra is summarising. So again, I'm suggesting that the act of looking suggests non-doing as opposed to end-gaining. And back onto the theme of me being the explorer and not necessarily the one who's any good at making products that are palatable to the public. My younger brother Ian is, as younger brothers tend to be, someone who's sort of trotted along in my wake, letting me make the hard yards. And for the last 20 years or so, he's run a very successful business called Swimming Without Stress, which is absolutely based on the principles of not end-gaining, not being in a hurry to learn how to swim. That's the main conception that he works against. My wife has also worked for his business for many years, so I've observed it along the way through my wife's work as well. So as Alexander Technique teachers who teach Alexander Technique in the water, my wife and my brother, their job is to rescue the nervous swimmer or the non-swimmer from their anxiety, being able to swim to the safety of the side, to grab onto the side and feel safe. Rather, the first step is to actually feel safe in the water, to be open in the water. So the first thing they have to learn is just to give themselves to the water, to float, in other words. So it's not that they're against the person learning in the end to swim. Of course, it's swimming without stress. The end to be gained is eventually to learn how to swim. But my wife in particular is incredibly patient, and she's had students over years who really love her, and she's never actually taught them to swim, but they don't care after a while because they really enjoy being able to be in the water. For those people, it's similar. Being in the water is like, for me, when I come to France, it's like, you take a deep breath because you're not in a hurry to get anywhere else. You're happy where you are. So I thought I would read a blog post that my brother sent to me, saying he said he was somewhat inspired by watching these videos. So he wrote, "Hi Mike, I wrote this last night. Watching your videos gives me confidence to stick my neck out. I'm sick of people lauding the benefits of swimming. Mostly the same people who talk about mindfulness and hating Trump." So here's the blog post. "Croft Farm is getting new windows and we're off to Paris for a couple of nights at the Molitor Hotel with its famous Art Deco pool. I'm looking forward to seeing it and to getting in. I might do a few lengths, but I won't be swimming up and down. When in the pool, I'm either giving myself to the water, brackets, letting it help me breathe, getting out of my own way, quietening down. Or, like most people, I'm in doing mode, trying to get something right or to get somewhere. Always in danger of overexcitement of the nervous system. The people most capable of getting something really beneficial from being in water are the least likely to do it. Swimmers are too busy swimming, counting, pushing, pulling, turning, sighting, pulling the head back against the spine, shortening the back, sucking in air. Profound benefits are there to be had for even the most fearful and unbalanced of people, if they can decide not to strive to be a swimmer of strokes and settle for being happy in water, floating about, moving a dangling limb consciously without moving the head, lengthening the spine. Getting in wild water feels like an adventure and it wakes everything up. But in the UK it's usually too cold to release and expand. So what happens instead? We stiffen our neck, shorten our back and hold our breath. We shrink. We feel good getting out, beating our chest because we feel alive. But what we've probably just done is excite our fear reflexes. The whole of humanity could benefit from being in water if it knew how. But mostly we're more stupid in water than we are on dry land. Okay, so that's my brother's frustration observing the ignorance of swimmers who, if only they stopped doing, could really experience a kind of freedom in the water that he's experienced through applying Alexander's principles. So floating versus trying to swim, I'm suggesting, are analogous to the act of looking compared with trying to swim. But just as learning to float can be a precursor to learning to swim well, the act of looking can actually lead naturally to seeing things. And if we apply it to the act of sitting in zazen, which is, that's how I came to the Alexander work, and that's how I pointed my brother in that direction. The reason Alexander was so useful to me, because I was so interested, like the swimmer who's interested in good strokes. I was interested in a good sitting posture. I thought that was the most important thing in zazen, was to have a good sitting posture. And both in the Alexander world and in the Zen world, you will have people who will pander to that misconception, not on a gross level, but on a subtle level. They'll pander to your misconception that you can improve your posture by applying the principles of the Alexander technique. But if you truly apply the principles of the Alexander technique, you become totally disinterested in good posture. So there's a huge difference between giving directions or saying the verbal orders like this. I wish to allow the neck to release, to allow the head to go forward and up, to let the back lengthen and widen, sending the knees forwards and away. So in saying the directions like that, that's how I was taught by Alexander techniques who had deep understanding to say the directions. I'm saying the directions like I look at the numbers on the page and say, chapter 3, verse 8. I'm enjoying, I know those words and I know what they mean, and nothing could be simpler. I'm just saying the words. Let the neck be free, to let the head go forward and up, to let the back lengthen and widen, sending the knees forwards and away. And I am not the slightest bit interested in whether they're working. The moment I start trying to feel out if those directions are working, that's relying on the vestibular sense, which is not reliable. It's faulty. So it's thinking as opposed to feeling. And Marjorie used to say, the thinking educates the feeling, and the feeling educates the body. It's that way round. It's very indirect. And I'll show you what it looks like if it's not indirect. I wish to allow my neck to release. Now I'm feeling what my neck's doing. To let the head go forward and up. To let the back lengthen and widen. Sending the knees forwards and away. You see, it's interesting. A deep breath followed when I said let the head go forward and up, and I deliberately did a little bit of doing. And generally speaking, it's that little bit of doing prevents the respiratory mechanism from working. But because the whole thing is so damn mental, what happened there is, in my showing the wrong thing, I actually became a little bit freer, which is very ironic. But you could see in my breathing, something freed up. So this goes back again to the principle number one, is don't try to be right. And Marjorie sometimes would actually get you to deliberately do the wrong thing. So if you think you're pulling your head back when you're lying down on the block, pull your head back on the block as hard as you can and then stop. So don't be afraid of doing the wrong thing, you see. So that's why you really need a teacher there to let you know what's going on, you know. Because I've had the benefit of good teachers for 20 years, I understood that when I tried to do the wrong thing to show you and actually started breathing, what was actually going on was I was in trying to show the wrong thing, there was no intention of being right. So unintentionally I proved the point. It's the trying to achieve something which stops us from non-doing in the water, from truly breathing when we're sitting in lotus. It prevents us from seeing when we're trying to see. Whereas if we didn't try to see, but were content just to practice the act of looking, then I'm suggesting everything might become clear. But finally, to finish again on what Marjorie Barlow used to tell her students, her pupils, in the end of the first lesson, I want you to go away and explore this for yourself. I'm paraphrasing, using the word explore. And see if I'm talking through my hat. Again, those aren't the words of a cult leader. She's not wanting people to be on her side. She's not interested in that at all. Again, another metaphor Marjorie used to use is like, you're teaching someone to play the piano. It's good for them if when they go home they have a piano to practice on. And in Alexander terms, the piano is those verbal directions. Let the neck be free, to let the head go forward and up, to let the back lengthen and widen, sending the knees forwards and away. So Marjorie would suggest, try it out for yourself. And don't worry, if you get a headache, that's fine. Everybody goes wrong at the beginning. Nothing, the learning process is about doing the wrong thing and making mistakes and learning from it. See, a lot of teachers won't give you those verbal directions in your first lesson because they know you'll try and do them, and in so doing you'll take yourself in the wrong direction. But Marjorie's point, but that's fine, go in the wrong direction, understand what the wrong direction is, and then you can stop going in it.
अथ चक्षुरादिन्द्रियपरीक्षा नाम तृतीयं प्रकरणम्। दर्शनं श्रवणं घ्राणं रसनं स्पर्शनं मनः इन्द्रियाणि षडेतेषां द्रष्टव्यादीनि गोचरः। स्वमात्मानं दर्शनं हि तत्तमेव न पश्यति यदात्मानं कथं द्रक्ष्यति तत्परान्। न पार्याप्तो गनि-दṛṣṭान्तो दर्शनस्य प्रसिद्धये स-दर्शनः स प्रत्युक्तो गम्यमानगतागतैः। नापश्यमानं भवति यदा किञ्चन दर्शनं पश्यतीत्येवं कथमेतत् युज्यते। पश्यति दर्शनं नैव पश्यत्यदर्शनं व्याख्यातो दर्शनेनैव द्रष्टा चाप्युपगम्यताम्। तिरस्कृत्य द्रष्टनास्त्य तिरस्कृत्य च दर्शनं द्रष्टव्यं दर्शनं चैव द्रष्टर्यसति ते कुतः। द्रष्टव्यदर्शनाभावात् विज्ञानादिचतुष्टयं नास्तीत्युपादानादीनि भविष्यन्ति पुनः कथम्। व्याख्यातं श्रवणं घ्राणं रसनं स्पर्शनं मनः दर्शनेनैव जानीयात् श्रोत्री श्रोतव्यकादि च।